hand that he has taken up for today. His issue is cyber crimes against women. Before Sir begins with his address, I'd like to inform all the participants that you can leave your questions on the WhatsApp group in the question box, which I shall later redirect to Sir. Or you can unmute yourself and ask questions active part of the session that will take place after the first session taken by the Sir. I request Sir to kindly begin with his address.
Can I begin?
Yes, sir, you can. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The participants know that the crime is the product of sick mind. That is why in criminal law, mens rea is an essential ingredient for any offense, unless it is expressly or by necessary implication excluded. In case of cyber crime against women also, the same is the legal position. Offenses against women are of different types. We cannot presume that women suffer only in the hand of men. Offenses against women are committed by the persons of both sexes. Just like men, women also commit various offenses and their proportion is increasing. In case of cyber crime against women, the proportion of women offenders may be less. Before the computer became a household article and the internet resources was widely available, the cyber crime against women were comparatively unknown. But the increasing penetration of the software knowledge among the masses and the free availability of internet has made the impact of cyber crime against women enormous. The most common crime committed against women in the cyber world are 1. Morphing the image of the woman with sexually explicit material. 2. Secretly capturing the image of the woman by violating her privacy and publishing it. 3. Sending sexually explicit material to the woman in order to corrupt her mind and disturb her mental peace. 4. Intimidating a woman with morphed or real images and demanding money or sexual favor. 5. Circulating character assassination material about women in the visible world. From time immemorial, when the human beings began to organize themselves as a group and the concept of state was recognized, the offense against women are being committed. At the initial stage, women were considered as personal properties of men. The violations against women did not invite any social sanctions in those periods. That was the reason why in ancient societies, the invaders took away not only the cattle and other valuables from the groups defeated, but they had also took away the women from the defeated group. Later, the situation began to improve and the realization that women were also having equal status and the right began to emerge on the advancement of civilization. We also know that the right to property was not at all available to the woman long back. Islamic law recognized half-caste women, and in the year 1937, Hindu Women Right to Property Act was enacted. In the year 1860, Indian Penal Code was enacted, which made few offences against women punishable. They are insulting modesty, rape, and bigamy. Later, few more offences were also created by way of an amendment. But when the resource of internet became a household name, the impact of offences against any woman was enormous and it required deterrent punishment. The emerging computer era necessitated the regulation of usage of computer and internet resources and making the offences through cyber world more deterrent. Hence, in the year 2000, the Parliament enacted an act by name Information Technology Act. Later, in the year 2009, this act was amended to deal with few more offences. First of all, I am dealing with the sending false messages. Section 66A of this Information Technology Act penalizes anyone who sends grossly offensive or menacing message, false message, knowing that it was false, but for annoyance, inconvenience, hatred, ill will, or to cheat. Such persons are punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend up to 3 years. But this section was challenged before the Supreme Court on the ground that the offences that have been enumerated are very vague and anyone can be prosecuted under this act and harassed. So extensive argument was put forth before the Supreme Court in this regard, and ultimately the Supreme Court accepted the challenge put forth to the provisions of this act on the ground that the provision was too wide to cover each and everything, even the bona fide message, which is termed as it is a false one or it is a menace to others. So, since it was too general in nature, the Supreme Court held that the provision was unconstitutional. That judgment has been reported in 2015, 5 SEC page 1. But so far, the Parliament has not passed any amendment to this provision in order to remove the stinge of unconstitutionality, and still on date, this provision 66A is unconstitutional. But there are other provisions in the Information Technology Act which deals with cyber crimes which are relevant to the woman. The second is the violation of privacy. We know we are seeing in the virtual world, just like in social medias like Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, and other things. So many materials, so many messages, so many videos and information are being passed. Memes are being passed, TikTok information. All these things are being passed, which projects woman in a bad light. See, a woman, we cannot expect that she would cover each and every part of her body perfectly so that nothing is visible from the outside world. And some persons, some antisocial elements, or some persons who are having inimical relationship with that person, we used to take photographs or images of that person and circulate it in the virtual world in order to project that woman in a bad light or with some other ulterior purpose, so that her character may be assassinated or he may get some bad pleasure in his own mind. And that has been made as an offense in section 66E of this act. The legislature has provided the maximum punishment of 3 years for this offense. And it has also defined in explanation C the term private area. The Parliament has defined this term as naked or undergarment clad genitals, pubic area, buttocks, or female breast. Thus, even if suppose a lady, she is seen from the side portion and her body part is somewhat explicitly visible, and that image is taken, or even if it is marked and the image in a sexually explicit manner is being taken and circulated, that is an offense. This has been enacted in order to protect the privacy of the woman folk. The next is regarding circulation of lascivious material or offensive or sexually explicit material in the internet. Now we know that when we see the social media, or even when we go to the websites, what we can easily see is there are number of materials, number of videos, number of written materials which specifically project the woman in a bad light, which are obscene. We have read the provisions of section 292 Indian Penal Code, which deals with obscenity. Like that, in virtual world also, something is said bad about the woman, about her character, something by marked manner or even violating her privacy, some obscenity is being committed, and that is specifically punished under section 67 and 67A, capital A of the Indian Penal Code. Next is regarding children. Now the children are also being targeted, and a sexually explicit material are also circulated to the children in order to corrupt their mind. Especially the female children, they are being corrupted so that they may be taken for the purpose of some illegal activities. And Section 67B of the Act imposes even more punishment. Whereas if it is a case of sexually explicit material to the woman, the maximum sentence is only 3 years. But in case it is against the children, it is up to 5 years. And the maximum penalty, maximum fine that can be imposed by the court is 10 years. Then, after enacting all these penal provisions, the legislature has provided some kind of mechanism for the purpose of effectively dealing with the prosecution of these offenders and also prevention of such offences. The deterrence of any penal laws depends not only in the sentence provided but also on other provisions like investigation, bail, compounding, etc. In order to make this act more deterrent for the offenders, various provisions have been incorporated in this act to make the prosecution of the offenders more effective. Section 76 empowers the investigation officer to confiscate the computers, floppies, disks, and other devices which were used for the commission of the offense. We all know that the similar provisions are available in Code of Criminal Procedure. When an offense is committed through any object, the investigating officer can seize those objects and he can produce those objects before the magistrate in order to prove the charge leveled against the accused. Similar provision has been enacted in Section 76 of this Information Technology Act that if a cyber crime is committed against a woman, the offense is being investigated by the police officer, then he can confiscate the computer, floppies, disks, and other devices through which he can establish the offense committed before the court so that the person who committed the offense can be punished. So that provision is a very vital provision. Then one more important provision is, since there are so many provisions regarding compounding of offences in Code of Criminal Procedure, but so if even in this act also, Section 77 capital A, which specifically provides for compounding of offences. If any offence is punishable under this act, those offences can be compounded in the court. So by paying a small fine or even a hefty fine, a person need not face the trial and he can get escape from the sentence. But Section 77 capital A specifically provides that if the offence is committed under this act against the woman, there is a complete embargo in compounding. So even if the court thinks that it can be compounded, even if the investigating officer thinks that he can out of the court compound it, if the offence is committed against the woman, the compounding is not at all permitted, and there is a specific bar in Section 77A of the Information Technology Act against compounding such offences. So the offender has to necessarily face trial if he commits an offence against the woman. Then regarding bail and cognizance also, there is a specific provision. So far as cognizance is concerned, for number of offences, the punishment sentence provided is only 3 years, and for some offences it is 5 years. The Act specifically provides that it is the offences committed under this Act is cognizable in nature. You know that what is cognizance? An investigating officer, if it is non-cognizable, he cannot directly register FIR, just like case of defamation. If in case of non-cognizable offences, he has to approach the jurisdictional magistrate and forward the material, place the material before the court. If the court comes to a conclusion that offence has been made out and it requires investigation by the police officer, then it can grant its approval for the purpose of registration of FIR. Then only the police officer can register FIR and investigate. Otherwise, the police officer cannot, on his own, register FIR and investigate the same. So, in this case, so far as the offences under the Information Technology Act is concerned, Section 77B specifically provides that the offences under this act are cognizable in nature. So, police officer need not get the permission of the court before registering FIR. And so far as the bail is concerned, if the offense, if the maximum sentence is 3 years or less, then the offense is bailable in nature, and for other offenses, they are non-bailable in nature. So this is the provision regarding bail and cognizance. Then in we all know that normally in police stations, the investigation would be, yes, except in serious offenses. Even in North India, I am seeing a number of case files in which the sub-inspectors are investigating the murder case. So like this, in different states, under the Police Act and Police Manual, the state governments authorizes the police officers of different ranks to investigate the offences in those states. But so far as these offences under the Information Technology Act is concerned, the Parliament thought that it has to be investigated by a responsible officer, and the offender, if he commits, he has to necessarily be prosecuted effectively and he has to be punished. So that is the sincerity, that is the importance attached by the Parliament in enacting the Act. So Section 78, previously, now it has been amended in 2009. Previous to the amendment, the Parliament provided that the offence under this Act can be investigated by an officer of Deputy Superintendent of Police or above. So when a Deputy Superintendent of Police, normally he is of the rank of an IPS. So such an officer, if he investigates, then there will be some quality and sincerity in investigation. So the Parliament mandated that it has to be investigated only by an officer of the rank of Deputy Superintendent of Police or above. But you know that now the cyber crimes, the number of cyber crimes are being increased, and the number of Deputy Superintendent of Police officers available are very less. They have to only supervise, not investigate. Otherwise, there will be a dearth of officers. So, in the year 2009, the Parliament amended the Act, and now an officer of the rank of Inspector of Police or above can investigate the offence, and the officer of the lesser rank cannot investigate. So, that is the specific provision regarding investigation of the offences against the woman, that is the cyber crime committed against the woman are concerned. Then one more thing is, once the offensive material against the woman are circulated in the virtual world, then there should be some kind of mechanism, there should be some kind of authority for the purpose of stopping the further circulation or further accessing of such offensive material. Section 69A of the Act specifically empowers the central government to direct the blocking of access to such offensive material by the public. So, when an offense against a woman have been committed in the cyber world, the woman is not at the mercy of the person who circulated such message. And once the information is given by the investigating officer to the central government, or even if FIR is not registered, if information reaches the central government that such an offensive material is being circulated, the central government can direct the concerned company to withhold, or the concerned organization which facilitates the accessing of such information to block the access to such offensive material. So the provision has been incorporated in order to further safeguard the interest of the woman. Then one more aspect is, we all know that when an offense is committed in a foreign country, normally except if it is committed by an Indian, if it is committed by the foreign citizen, then he cannot be prosecuted in India. That was the dispute raised in the case of murder committed by the Italian Marines, and they have also succeeded by establishing that in India they cannot be prosecuted. Now it is going to another country, and in India, so far as Indian people, the offences, violations committed against the Indian Penal Code are for those offences only an Indian citizen can be prosecuted, and in case of foreigners, they should come to India and they should commit an offense in India, or suppose they commit an offense in that country and it should have an effect in the country. There is the consequence of such offense should be in India. So these are all the jurisdictional issues. So far as the applicability of Indian Penal Code is concerned, and that is committed by the foreigners. And in this act also, there is a specific provision by way of Section 75. It says that if any foreigner commits an offense involving a computer system, or computer network located in India, he can be prosecuted by Indian authorities and tried in Indian courts. So a person in India, suppose if he wants to do any offense against a woman, he cannot take an excuse by forwarding the material illicitly or secretly to a person in a foreign country, to a foreigner, and through that foreigner he can circulate it, so that the traces of link between this person and the offense committed may not be available, and he can simply enjoy liberty. So the specific provision has been enacted in Section 75 to the effect that a person, he commits a cyber crime against woman in India, or even if he is a foreigner, the effect of that cyber crime is felt, or the cause is felt in our country, then even that foreigner can be prosecuted. So the Information Technology Act has made enormous provision, a comprehensive provision, not only apart from the Indian Penal Code, a specific provision governing various types of harassments, various types of offences against women. So the Parliament has provided an effective and a deterrent legal framework to deal with crime against women in the cyber world. But the actual effect of the enactment of this act depends upon the human factors involved in its implementation. The investigating officers should be properly trained in the matter of investigation of such offences, and they should show their sincerity in doing their jobs. The affected woman should also extend her full cooperation to the investigating officer. The trial judges should also be given adequate training in understanding this technical field. Only then the society would realize the benefit of the act enacted by the Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful address. Our horizons of knowledge have definitely widened from what they were 30 minutes ago. Before we move on with the interactive session, I'd like to inform all of the participants that Dr. Kumar Askan Pandey, Associate Professor of Law at Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National Law University, has joined us in this session with us. We shall be listening to him after the interactive session, and I thank him for joining in this webinar. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
All the participants can now unmute themselves one by one and ask questions directly to Mr. Sirajuddin in order to clear their doubts.
Sir?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, you
Hello?
are. You
Yes,
can
ma'am.
ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir. So my question is, with respect to the two parallel laws that we have, that is the Indian Penal Code and the IT Act. So isn't it unfair to have this differential treatment for the same offense just because we have the medium that is used for the commission of the offense is different? Say, like what I mean to say is just that having the cyber component to the offense makes it, eligible to be housed under different laws and acts. Rather, shouldn't it be housed under the Indian Penal Code only?
I am not able to understand what you are saying.
So my question is that we have two parallel laws, that is the Indian Penal Code and the IT Act with respect to cybercrime. So my question is that isn't it unfair to have two different laws for the same offense? Just because the medium that is used.
Yes. See, the provisions in the Indian Penal Code is general in nature, just like defamation. Section 499 IPC deals with the defamation, and Section 500 deals with the sentence. It simply says whose name is defamed, then it is an offense. So then certain exceptions have been provided. But this provision is too general in nature, and some interpretation is that this defamation is not covering the defamation through cyber world or defamation which was committed in a foreign country like this. So the provisions available in the Indian Penal Code, if they are given an extended meaning, then they are covering the what are all described as offences under this Information Technology Act. So it would lead to some complications. And another thing is the sentence provided for normal offences, just like obscenity in Indian Penal Code, is lesser, up to 2 years. But the Parliament thought that if it is through the cyber world, then it has to, the sentence has to be given more, and the normal, the lesser sentence that has been prescribed for other types of offences are not at all sufficient. So suppose if obscenity is in a print media, the sentence that has been provided in Indian Penal Code, that is sufficient. But if it is through the cyber world, because it is having larger impact, suppose if it is printed, some 100 copies are being printed, it may be seen by 1,000 persons. But if in the cyber world, an offensive material is circulated, that can be seen by millions in a fraction of a second. Considering all these things, the Parliament thought that yes, special law has to be enacted, which provides more deterrent punishment. Now we have more deterrent punishment has been provided, and the prosecution would be both under this act and that act. But after the trial, the court finds that only the offence under this act is attracted, and the Indian Penal Code may not be attracted. So he can be sentenced under this act. Suppose if the court finds that he can be prosecuted and the charge against him under both these acts are maintainable, then the court is having the liberty to impose a punishment only under one act, not under both acts. So the answer to your question is that if a person is prosecuted for an offence under the Indian Penal Code and also under this act, if the court concludes that he has committed an offence under both acts, the sentence which may be ultimately imposed upon the accused would be the one prescribed under this act, not under the Indian Penal Code. Provision is there in the Code of Criminal Procedure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for addressing the question. We have one more question which I'm going to redirect to you. The question is that whether cybercrime against women in a workplace is directed to an internal committee of the company valid resolution process, or such a person should complain directly under the IT Act or file a formal complaint with the cyber cell.
There are two aspects. One is violating the discipline in the working place. Another one is the commission of offences under the Information Technology Act. Suppose a woman works in a place, in a computer company or something, works in a place, there she faces some harassment. It amounts to sexual harassment in a working place. So there is a specific act, prevention of sexual harassment. You know that one case the Supreme Court held in a case named Valsala something. In that case, the Supreme Court held that it is an offence. Till the proper law is enacted, this would be taken as a law under Article 141 of the Constitution of India. Now, the Parliament has enacted an act named Prevention of Sexual Harassment in Workplace Act. So the aim of this provision is, this particular act is to safeguard the interest of the woman as an employee by excluding the person who commits this sexual harassment from the view of this lady, and also safeguarding the interest of this lady from being punished for complaining. So this is the main purpose. So if she lodges a complaint with the employer, then it has to be referred to the committee. Suppose if there is no committee, then the district magistrate, who is the district collector, a committee is there. So that committee would inquire. So this is a procedural mechanism to inquire the sexual harassment in a working place, and it is purely in the matter of purely civil in nature. So that is one aspect. And similar provision is available in Indian Penal Code also. Section 354A has been added. After 354A, A, B, C, like that, some testing. I am saying 354 capital A. A specific provision has been added in Indian Penal Code. Suppose if the woman lodges a complaint with the police that she is being harassed in a working place, then the police would raise an FIR, investigate, and file a final report, and the accused should face the trial. That is another aspect. The third aspect is, suppose if the harassment is through the cyber world, through the virtual world, then report can be lodged within the police under the Information Technology Act. And if it is in the working place, both under section 354A and also under the Information Technology Act, he can be prosecuted and he has to face both the offences. So far as this one is concerned, not just like other Indian penal provisions. Suppose if a person is found guilty of an offence of sexual harassment in a working, that is a different offence. And if he uses the cyber world for the purpose of this harassment, so he can be prosecuted and convicted under both these offences, and separate sentence can be imposed upon the accused. Either it may run consecutively or it may run concurrently. It depends upon the nature of the offences and the mind of the judge.
Thank you so much, sir, for the answer. The next question is of more of a practical scenario. The question is that if a person steals my mobile phone and makes a fraud account on my name on Facebook and publishes an obscene picture of a girl, then what's my liability, and what's the procedure laid down by law to trace such an offender?
A person who commits an offence,
Sir, your voice is not audible. Sir?
You are also the victim. Main victim would be the lady whose name is being damaged, whose image is being damaged. She is the main victim. Since your ID is being used, you are also one of the victims. So, when complaint is being lodged, so far as you are concerned, it amounts to theft of the identity, for which a provision has been made in the Information Technology Act, and it is also a case of mischief under the Indian Penal Code. So far as you are concerned, this is the offence committed by that person who that accused. So far as the woman is concerned, regular provisions are available in the Indian Penal in this Information Technology Act for using the computer, using the virtual world to damage her reputation or to harass her. So under that provision, the accused can be prosecuted and she can get a relief.
Thank you so much, sir. I invite further questions from any of the participants who can unmute themselves and ask questions directly.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening.
My name is Astha Arya. Sir, I would like to ask you a question that we don't have strict laws. Still now we are having the IT law in which revenge pornography is like the issues of revenge pornography are deep. So you don't think so that like European country we should also have a strict provision for this kind of things? Revenge pornography crime rate is nowadays registered a lot.
Revenge pornography, all these things are covered under this. Strict law means what we can say. Act is that. See, so far as the act is concerned, if it is the first lesser sentence is provided, if it is the second offense or the subsequent offenses with the same offender, the sentence provided is more. And if you see various provisions of the act, the fine imposable by the court is in lakhs, not in thousands. If you see, you can see various provisions of Indian Penal Code. Even for murder, the fine imposed would be 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees. But so far as the offense under the Indian this Information Technology Act is concerned, it is the act says 1 lakh, 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs like this. And in our Indian condition, suppose if a person commits this offense and he is found guilty, then imposing the fine of 5 lakhs would be a considerable amount. So our legislature has taken enormous care in prescribing adequate punishment. And one more constitutional aspect is also there. See, for each and we cannot incorporate a provision by seeing the enactment in other countries. The cultural standards, the judicial standards, the constitutional standards in other countries are entirely different. So we are having our own system. In our country, suppose for an offense, the sentence provided is more severe than the nature of the offense. Then the Supreme Court and the High Courts would come to the rescue of the accused and say that no, such kind of sentences cannot be imposed. This is unconscionable. This is irrational. This is unconstitutional. So a balance has to be maintained regarding in the matter of prescribing the sentence, the severity of the sentence, severity of the act, the impact of those acts in the society, impact of those acts on the offenders, and the impact of those acts on the victims. So all have to be taken into account. Now the legislature has provided, instead of keeping quiet by invoking the Indian Penal Code, the legislature has enacted a new act, a specialized act, a special act so far as these provisions are concerned. And apart from providing the imprisonments, which is minimum up to 3 years, and for some offenses it is 5 years, the fine has also been provided, which comes to lakhs. So at this stage, the parliament has thought fit that these sentences are enough. Suppose, just like Nirbhaya case, some gravity comes to the notice of the parliament, or the public opinion is built that the sentence provided in this act is not sufficient. Definitely, at that time, the parliament would come to the rescue. So till then, this is the sentence. Any other question? Hello?
More questions? Participants, if you have any more questions, kindly turn on your mic and ask the questions directly to sir. Seeing that we don't have any further questions, we will now be concluding with the interactive session for today. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Kumar Askan Pandey, who has joined us on this webinar. Having around of more than 18 years of teaching experience, Dr. K.A. Pandey's interest lies in criminal law, criminology, and more such fields around criminal law. He is currently an associate professor at the NLU Lucknow, and I currently have the privilege of studying law under his guidance. He has been a consultant to the Mahila Samman Prakosht, the Women and Children Wing of Uttar Pradesh Police, and has conducted several training programs for the members of the police force around and across the state of Uttar Pradesh. He is the editor-in-chief and coordinator of the Center of Criminal Justice Administration, the CCJA, at Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National Law University, which was established in the year 2008. Its aim is to promote students and researchers' interest and influence in the academic discipline and practical application of criminal law. I request him to kindly share his thoughts about the session we have had today on the issue of women and the criminal justice system. I once again would like to thank him for allowing the CCJ in collaborating with us and supporting us in hosting today's session. Sir.
Thanks, Dhaman. Thanks a lot for this opportunity and very elaborate introduction. I'm humbled.
You're welcome, sir.
Respected and learned advocate, Mr. Sirajuddin, Team Think India and Team CCJ, the organizers and dear participants who have turned up in huge number, as I can see on the screen. A very good evening to one and all, and what a day it must have been for the organizers and also for the participants. 4 sessions on such a fascinating theme, that is women and the criminal justice system, and also on very contemporary and equally fascinating subtopics. Entire cyber law, especially cyber crime against women, was revisited in such a short period of time. Questions were answered with such conviction. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Sirajuddin, for gracing this webinar, sparing time, interacting with the young minds, and of course, we look forward to many such engagements in future. Your deliverance was certainly what I may call icing on the cake that marks the end of this important day as far as CCJ's endeavor to organize such kind of brainstorming sessions are concerned. I must also thank the organizers for this concept, the theme, for taking pains to arrange the logistics, for the collaboration, of course. I must also thank Team Think India. I would be failing in my duty, though I couldn't unfortunately join the other sessions, if I don't express my gratitude to the earlier speakers. Advocate Archana Pathak Dave, advocate on record. Advocate Aishwarya Rathi, who is Additional Solicitor General, and Advocate Pinky Anand, also Additional Solicitor General, for gracing the earlier sessions. Team Think India, Team CCJ, they have done fantastic work, right from logistics, as I said. Animesh and Dhaman, who conducted this session, they must be congratulated for this. And thank you for all the hard work that your people have put in. And last but not the least, again, I must also thank all the participants. As far as the topic is concerned, I think the speaker has not left anything untouched as far as the theme is concerned. So I would better not say anything on the theme and restrict myself to only thanking each and everyone once again. Thank you all. Stay safe. Good night.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. We really feel privileged that you have joined us in this session. And we definitely look forward in hosting more such sessions along with CCJA. And once again, I'd like to thank you again for your kind words. That's it. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks.
I also thank all the participants who have joined us today for this session. It was a really brainstorming session, and definitely we'll look forward in hosting more such sessions, and we'll expect you all to also join us in those sessions. Thank you all. That's it for today. Thank you so much.